Lita loves syrup of squill on her groat cakes, but she hasn't seen a jar in over a year. Brunt misses the rotting vegetation of Ferengi the most, and Moogie's ears haven't been this tight in centuries. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton.
Hello, everybody.
We're just going to cut to the chase here, everybody. Mr. Ira Stephen Behr is here today.
Hello, hello, hello.
We couldn't be happier. This is the best day ever. Thank you so much for joining us. We're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 10, The Magnificent Ferengi, written by, what do you know, Mr. Ira Stephen Behr and Hans Beimler. It's directed by, who is that?
Chip Chalmers.
Yeah,
Chip Chalmers.
I didn't recognize that name, but we'll hopefully
He was an AD on TNG.
Got it.
Oh.
Interesting.
He was an AD, and he also directed for them. He did Captain's Holiday,
Oh, that's a great one.
and I forgive him.
No way.
Chip was. I have good memories of Chip. I like Chip. He was a good guy. So yeah, and he came back. I forget why, but he had been gone for a while doing other things, and somehow he got the Magnificent Ferengi.
So this was, sorry, I was just going to say this was January 1st, 1998. So you had a 1 month or so hiatus, came back. This is our first episode of 1998. We also have Malissa here, by the way, because it's a Nog episode. And so this is going to be a lot of fun, everybody. I'm sorry for jumping in there. I wanted to squeeze out the last bits of information.
Okay.
Let's have some fun. Sorry, what were you saying, Cirroc?
I was just going to add a little bit of Chip Chalmers history for everybody out there. He was an AD also on Melrose Place, the A Team.
Okay.
So and Miami Vice.
Wow.
So he's got a lot of experience in television. And he also directed Take Me Out to the Hollow.
Yes.
So
Love that one.
another great episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a funny story. I should be on for that one because that has,
Yes.
that's how that came about is a good story, actually.
We would love that.
Not talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite is one of those episodes where I feel like when I first saw it back in the day, I was like, oh, interesting, a baseball episode. But looking back on it and revisiting it, it just feels like one of the best episodes ever. It's so freaking fun
great.
and amazing
Yes.
and beautiful. So we can't wait to talk about that. But Cirroc's like, yeah, but I can't wait to talk about this episode right now. So let's go ahead and do that.
Good. We've got a nice juicy pie in front of us that we can slice up in this episode.
Yes.
I love this episode. I found myself laughing out loud a few times. And this was one of those things where you put comedy into a very serious show, actually at a serious time in this show. But the comedy is such, I was welcoming it because I felt like I needed a little bit of laugh after going through all the stuff we've been through with this first 6-episode arc in season 6.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit of the placement of the comedy and kind of even the idea to go Ferengi centric on this episode?
Well, sure. By season 6, my feelings towards the Ferengi were extremely complicated. I wouldn't go far as to say the love-hate relationship, but there were times, and I know I'm not the only one. I know many fans at the time, and probably still now, were questioning it too. The validity of trying to go for these comedic episodes. I think I've mentioned before in interview. One thing that Rick Berman and I actually did agree on, and by the way, I think Rick turned 76 on Christmas Day. So
wow.
He's my
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
One of the things we agreed on was it got to a point, I don't know if it was in season 4 or season 5, we turned in these Ferengi scripts, and at this point, Rick wasn't giving a lot of notes, giving up on the show, but he would say stuff, and he meant it. He goes, it's never going to be as funny on the stage as it is on the page. And that was the thing I kept, the same lesson I was often being taught, because, Star Trek on the whole, not that it doesn't do it at times and do it well, it's not geared for comedy. We didn't have comedy directors. I mean, Renee Auberjonois was the closest we had to someone who really understood comedy in his bones, but we didn't have comedy directors. The show didn't think in comedic ways. And, it was asking a lot. And often I felt that, I'd come away going, why the effing hell are we continuing to put ourselves through this? It's just not, it's either too broad or the rhythm is wrong. Comedy is about rhythm. It's about how comedy is shot. Comedy isn't about singles most of the time. It's about 2 shots. You had very few shots of Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello or Martin Luther, name your whoever, or Dumb and Dumber, where they're in separate shots. It's, going back and forth over shoulder shots. No, you need them both in the same shot. The comedic duo, you got to see both their reaction, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times, it didn't work. But I will say this, having watched it, and I was very apprehensive. I have not watched a Deep Space Nine episode since Far Beyond the Stars at the convention in the Vegas convention. That's the last time I've seen a Deep Space Nine episode.
That was like 5 years ago.
Whatever. So I really wasn't in the in the headspace. And since we lost, Aaron and Renee, that doesn't make it any easier. Hans Beimler is going through a really tough time now. I just visited Hans. We don't have to get into this now, but Hans's health is troublesome at best and is not going to get better. So the whole thing about revisiting the episode, I felt I kept saying to myself, why not Far Beyond the Stars? Why aren't I here for Far Beyond the Stars, or even My Way, or why am I doing a Ferengi episode? But I have to say, I had some laughs. There were times I it's amazing shows in 7 freaking days. 7 days. Holy Christ! With all those people, it needed more time. It needed more love and attention. But that being said, it was a fantastic cast. But so anyway, that none of that answers the question of what the hell we did it for. We did it because exactly why you think we did it, because the shows were getting darker and darker, and we just wanted to, lighten it up a bit. It was also something that, drove us often. The thing that drove us to do what we did a lot of the times, it was to foil fan expectations. It was like, we're not doing the show for the fans. We don't care about the fans. We're doing the show for us. We're doing this. We have to like the show. No one else has to like the show. And so what we want to see, we want to see a little humor. If the fans get on board with it, they can or they cannot. It doesn't matter. And I wish more TV nowadays or films cared less about fan response and more about doing what your heart tells you to do. I think we'd be in better shape. But so, and also, I had this thing that I used to say all the time with Armin, I always felt that Armin, he resented, which may be a strong word, he resented the fact that, he was Quark and he was not a hero. He was surrounded by heroes. And I kept saying, we don't need another goddamn hero on the show. We have heroes coming out of our butts, man. We have every place you trip over a goddamn hero. How many heroes have you met in your life? They're not there, you can go 8 weeks, months and not meet a hero. On the Space Nine, you turn around, you bump your nose against the hero. The last thing we needed was another hero. But then it was the idea of, okay, let's show that even the Ferengi can be heroes. Let's give them their heroic moment and then never do it again. Nog was a different case. Nog was Starfleet. I'm not talking about Nog. But let's give, and so then I started thinking what's heroic? What would be fun? What's the least Ferengi thing I could think of? And that was the Magnificent Seven. That's what came, that we could actually make, even though the plot has nothing to do with the Magnificent Seven, nothing at all. But the idea of getting a bunch of Ferengi together to do a heroic act and seeing, in spite of themselves, in spite of all their mendacity and their greed and all those things that make a Ferengi, in spite of that, they can rise above themselves and do something heroic. After all, it's Bemoogie. Originally, it was supposed to be Grand Nagus Zek, who they were gonna, but Wally wasn't available. So it became Moogie, which is fine. But originally we thought about, you got to save the Grand Nagus. But Moogie, even though it's, for some of the others, there was less of a need to save Moogie. I mean, really, that's Quark, Ram, and Nog, but it still worked. So that was the thing. Let's do something a little lighter that'll surprise people, and let's make it so that everywhere the eye looks, it's a goddamn Ferengi. You can't get away from it. If you want to, not in this episode, pal. Close your eyes, keep them closed for 5 minutes, open them again. It's still Ferengi.
There's more of them now.
Yeah, and there really wasn't a B plot in this episode.
Yeah,
This is like all A plot.
Well, also, I mean, look at it. When I watched it again, I mean, you know how much story we had to fit in? It could have been another 20 minutes easily of just on the station, complications. I mean, it's amazing how much we were able to fit in. So no, this was not a B story type of, you cannot have a show that's going to start from zero and wind up with gathering a band of Ferengis to go off on a mission together, a dangerous mission, and then have time to do, what is Sisko and Dax doing on the station. It just wasn't possible.
Yeah, I actually remember when there was 10 minutes left in the episode, and they still, because I remember this episode, and they still hadn't shot Keevan. And I remember thinking, how the hell did they squeeze all of that into the last 10 minutes? And I thought the same thing. This thing could have had another 30 minutes from here, where there's lies and ins and outs, and then they have to make sure the Jem'Hadar leave and all these other, complications. But you had to wrap it up because there's so much to set up, because you have to explain why there are all these extra Ferengi jumping in. They're not an already made crew. Did you feel that pressure? Was there a lot of kind of killing your baby, saying, I really want this scene, but I have to cut it out to fit this other stuff?
We had to. I mean, I was amazed how I had the same feeling as you did watching it, and I hadn't even, it took me a minute to remember that, yes, the whole thing was about Keevan being killed, and then the weekend at Bernie's thing. But again, it was like, when is that going to happen?
Yeah.
We're running out of time. When is that going to happen? So I was happy to see, and then it gets wrapped up so quickly. I mean, it's really, you don't even have time to take a breath. I remember that famous moment, which I've talked about before, when after we had done Far Beyond the Stars, and I talked to Avery, and I was just like so jazzed after that episode. After I watched the cut of it, I was so jazzed. And I remember, I don't know if I called him or it was in person. I said, Avery, man, we did it. It really came out. It's really good. And Avery's perfect response was, should have been a two-parter. It's like, can't you give me anything? Can't you just for a second say, yeah, it's good? So what I'm thinking is, I should have responded with, and so should the magnificent Ferengi. Could you imagine if I said that to him? If he said Army of the Stars, and I came back with, yes, and the magnificent Ferengi.
Yeah, I'm going to die on this hill.
So there you go. Never enough time.
But even still, you managed to fit so much information into this episode. We got nuanced characters. Each Ferengi was their own person. You got that they had their own agenda, and they still had time to have these side conversations, like Ishka talking to Yulgren about her firm skin.
Yeah.
And all of that, and you never lose the urgency in what they're trying to accomplish as a whole. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's nice to see. It's refreshing to see, because we don't always get that with some newer stuff.
You just a really good point. In fact, you made a point that for me that now I don't have to make, because you kind of made it. And it's my mantra, and it's always been my mantra. And even a show that, like Magnificent Ferengi, if you looked at it or thought about it, it just seems like a totally plot-driven show. Talk about a plot. I mean, saving your mother from the bad guys, that's just plot. And how the engine of that show is going to be plot. But actuality, it's the characters, and the fact that we take the time that every single character is given a specific, a specific point of view, a specific take, and obviously we had that's where we drew on the Magnificent Seven, in that remembering how you can sketch a character by giving him one motivating need, a want, and that tells the audience who that character is. We were also lucky that a couple of these people had been in previous episodes, so they, you had seen them already. Which was really good. But yes, even the Vortas had very different individual characters, and I thought that was really good. But the thing that really impressed me was you can make fun of the big ears and all the stuff about greed and misogyny, but those were all really good actors, really fine actors, and they really knew how to sell it. They really knew how to sell their little time. Anytime the camera was on them, they knew how to phone that camera. So good on them.
Yeah, you answered my question. I was going to ask, what was it about the Magnificent Seven that you did borrow from? And you answered that question. You said by giving each character one kind of story that drives them, one thing that defines their purpose in the in the story. But back to the dialogue once again. You wrote this stuff, you and Hans, and I love the language. and some of the thing that makes DS9 so exceptional to me is the way that you have the dialogue, the way you put conflict and the way you add drama, the way the honesty is there. And I think that reflects, Ira, who you are. You're very, blunt and to the point, but really honest and sincere. So I love those things about you. And that's what I feel when I watch this episode. And I'll give you an example. When Brunt comes into the room and he goes through the lineup of everybody that's there, and he says,
yes,
a shy, a moron, a failure.
That guy was harnessing Ira right there, right?
I mean, that to me is, that's like, I loved it. The writing's so great. It's like right to the point. And I'm in, like, not only is it all these guys, but I'm in too. Count me in. So I love that. The writing, it's just beautiful. And it made me laugh. Literally, I had to go back a few times to watch scenes over. And I found myself rewinding. Let me see how, Nog had a couple of lines right when they kind of confront him about joining in. And he's like, not me. And I just watched him say, not me. I went back and saw like 3 or 4 times just to see that first facial expression he gives, like, I'm not, don't even waste your time. But let me go to my next question, though. And that is the Ferengi identity. You say you've always struggled with the Ferengi, that they were kind of, you had conflicts about what they were being portrayed as. And I feel like that's what you identified in this episode, not only in the description of who the characters were, you have these people, but you use the fact that their greed, you use their greed and their logic and their desire to, get this latinum, to show that they have this courage. They also have courage, and they also can be motivated to kind of, get the right results. And I just love that kind of clever storytelling. I want to let you expand upon that.
Well, that was part of the job that, Michael set out for us, and that I, being there at the beginning, chose to pick up and carry, which was, why the hell do we have a Ferengi on this TV series? Of all the races and of all the species, why a Ferengi? I mean, Captain's Holiday and they didn't have like this great history on the series, in the franchise of, let's talk about all the great Ferengi episodes. So, then it became a thing of having to make it work, having to find where are the bona fides of having, the Ferengi culture on the show. It could have receded into the background, or it could have been dealt with, and the choice was to deal with it. So, it goes back to the Ferengis, finding the key to them, which was that they're the most human characters on the show. I used to say, besides O'Brien, they were the most human characters on the show. And given the world in 2021, I think they're a lot more human than a lot of the humans on this planet right now. So the idea that, you see it, you said it, Cirroc, you see it in the episode. I mean, they're all driven by greed, right? That's the thing, and whether it's 50 bars or 20 bars, I mean, that's the thing. But really, you have Lek, who's the James Coburn character, who just wants to prove his talent, and it's all about, finding, an opposition worthy of testing him. He's always testing himself, and Brunt, needing to get into the good graces again. They all had something. And Nog, the great thing about Nog, and it's amazing to me, again, when I think of the way characters on the show, including your own, Cirroc, grew over the 7 years, as opposed to some of the other series. And you look at Nog in that episode, and we did nothing. We didn't have to say, we didn't make a big deal. At that point, we didn't have to make a big deal about Nog being in Starfleet anymore. I mean, that was kind of like a given, you know. It wasn't a push-pull anymore. But to think of that kid on the promenade and in the school in that first season, and to see him, you know, as this maturing, you know, adult, you know, and a leader, you know, again, because I don't watch the show and haven't seen the show, everything just stands out in such relief when you watch it after, like you said, being 5 years away. It's like,
Whatever.
Wow, you know, that's he was really he did a really, really good job. I thought it was going to be tough to watch at first, you know, but it was just good to see him and know that he did it.
And part of Nog's motivation, which you made clear in this episode, was the allure of being treated like Commander Worf, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about that a bit. We've got to hit our break, but that's great stuff there. And I want to spend a lot of time on that, hopefully. We're going to take a very quick break. Everybody, you're in for a treat. There's even more Ira on the way, if you can believe that. We'll be right back on the other side on the Seventh Rule. Like I said, everybody, you're in for a treat, and
you're in for a treat. 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 That's a T-shirt. You're in for. I want to have the ice cream. You're in for a treat.
That is, I do think that is a T-shirt, maybe, and it all depends on how you spell it. Very quickly, here are the trivioids of the week. Lita loves syrup of squill on her groat cakes, but she hasn't seen a jar in over a year. Dax, O'Brien, and Bashir are back from a secret mission on the Defiant. Ishka has been kidnapped by the Dominion. Moogie wants to have her ears raised. Rom reminds Quark that Ferengi aren't commandos. The Vorta are supposed to commit suicide if they get captured. Brunt misses the rotting vegetation of Ferenginar the most. Rom misses the dampness. And Ishka reminds us that Hippocat root is very versatile. That was a really fun scene. Much more to talk about, but let's go right back, Cirroc, to what you were saying about Aaron's excellent performance of Nog and the great writing there.
Yeah, I was just highlighting the fact that, you know, his ambition was the thing that they used to kind of the carrot on the stick to get him to sign in on the deal. And his ambition to want to be a leader, which is another great characteristic of who Nog is. And I felt like we saw glimpses of that as well when they were locked in that one room in the infirmary. And they're all basically saying, we don't want to go see what's outside. And Nog has the courage to say, I'll do it.
Right.
I'll go up and, you know, I got it. And I love that. Just it's a small moment, but I just love the fact that you wrote that. You wrote that for Nog. You're like, you know, and he played it like he was supposed to. You know, and I just felt like there were other moments too. I liked the moment as well when they were going through the things and he says, "Sir."
Oh, that was that whole exchange.
Yes,
beautiful.
That first scene was the best, and it ended with Rom saying,
yes.
You know, with Rom saying, "You mean, sir. We're a team, sir." Right?
Ice the cherry on top.
So good.
But yes, the way Nog is just like he's so ambitious and he has this real desire to be a leader and he has so much courage. I think that resonates in his performance in this episode.
Well, what I liked about that, Cirroc, and I definitely noted that when I was watching it, and it surprised me, is all that was there. Everything you just said was there, but it was there. You know, we didn't hit it. He didn't hit it and we didn't hit it. Like it didn't become a thing. Like he didn't have to make a big deal. He didn't have to force it. it was really, it's like he wants to be Worf. What,
Yeah.
what's the surprise? Why wouldn't he not want to be like that? There was nothing immature about that. There was a maturity. That's the thing. There was a maturity about Nog in this episode that surprised me, because I hadn't seen him and I haven't been watching, and it was like, that he was the Starfleet guy, but he wasn't like a stick in the mud. We didn't make him. We avoided a lot of cliches. I realized easily. He could have been the martinet and gone overboard, which could have been an odd thing, by really pushing his authority. But no, he's actually like one of those people with the H word. It's like there's an easy heroic nature to him in this show, and he's going to get the job done. And I was surprised. I have to say, it was not as ham-fisted as I thought it would be at all, and it was kind of touching in a way, in terms of how the character had grown.
Well, therein lies the beauty of Deep Space Nine's writing above almost any other series in any franchise, is that you took the time to create these very nuanced characters that have so much depth, to where you don't have to slapstick it. You don't have to beat us over the head with it. You can make a joke or a touching moment or a threat with just a look or a word. And you trust the audience after 6 seasons to know the characters enough to where we don't have to beat them over the head with it. You're thinking we can just let the characters play true to themselves, and the audience will laugh. We can see Odo just go to Quark, and it's like a whole paragraph of dialogue, or anything like that. You've already done the work ahead of time. And another thing I noticed with this episode, it's always very important, in these kinds of situations, when there's a crew, you always want everybody in the crew to have like a superpower, a usefulness, something they're good at. Somebody has great vision, or whatever. In this case, it was somebody has a ship, somebody is the commander, somebody's the brain, this and that. But that's usually for a movie or the course of a series. You were able to squeeze it into an episode because you had done the work in 5 out of the 6 characters. Was there any conscious effort to make sure to add that superpower or that usefulness, or did it feel like it just kind of came organically because the story itself needed these particular attributes?
Well, no, I mean, we wanted every character to pop, and everyone to have a chance to make the most of whatever screen time they were given. One of the things I did laugh about, because I don't think it was in the script, it might have been, I'd have to go back and find it and look, but the way Jeff, Jeff was used to being the guest Klingon, the guest Ferengi, Worf, Quark, and he had to share the stage now with, Hamilton Camp, who played Lek, he was a guy, he came from storybook theater, which was this live, they did these adult funny versions of fairy tales. Paul Sills was the producer director, and Hamilton Camp was a singer. Hamilton Camp was an incredibly hip, talented guy, and now we're throwing him in there. Josh Pace, is a talented character actor. There were other people filling up space, and I knew Jeff would have to do something to assert his, to keep Brunt in the mix, because we all knew Brunt by now. There were no real surprises. And what he did is he made Brunt the biggest coward of them all. If you notice, Brunt was the first one to run away. He would shriek in fear, and that was his way of finding something new that we know about Brunt to add to that story.
Mhm.
And that's what actors do, or good actors do, when faced with the challenge. But yeah, I mean, we just wanted, and you notice at the end, even though it's such a quick shot, you can barely see it, but it is Lek who throws the knife and kills the Jemadar. I mean, I wish that hadn't been quite as, I wish it landed a bit more, but it all kind of works out. And of course, it's what's his name, Josh's character, who shoots, the Vorta, who accidentally shoots Keevan.
Oh yeah.
That I had forgotten that moment too. That worked for me surprisingly well. I had literally forgotten that's how. I knew Keevan died, but I forgot how. And then it's like, of course, you want to kill Quark. Of course.
Cousin Gala. Yeah.
Yeah, Gala. Gala's not the kind of guy you really want to take on the but even in the Magnificent Seven, you had the Robert Vaughn character who was unable, whose nerves were shot and wasn't the man he used to be. So Gala was the total, the total waste of time. He had no real skills that were going to come in handy, except to kill Keevan, which gave them their in to saving Keevan.
Yeah, this episode was laced with lines that I really loved. This is the sloppiest, most amateurish operation I've seen. Call me when you have.
Yes.
Those lines, another one is Brunt, when they're like, Brunt, get out of here, nobody wants you, and Quark's like, that make the people have spoken, and Brunt's like, okay, I'll just get in my ship and leave. Duh, I've got a ship. Like it was perfect.
Another beautiful moment was when Quark is bringing Keevan onto the ship, and Rom starts introducing everyone and
loved
welcoming.
it.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So good.
Just the way he did it. He was like, and I'm Rom. This is Nog. Oh,
Right.
Beautiful.
And Quark says, I don't think he cares, or something of that nature. And he's like, truer words were never spoken.
So Christopher Shea was really, really good. I mean, he was a Vorta. It was perfect that we killed him, but if we hadn't, I would have brought him back to deal with Weyoun, because he was quite good. Which is absolutely why we brought him back after Rocks and Shoals. But
he was good.
He was quite good.
I like the way this scene opens with the nephew, cousin, stepsister, friend, secretary, and Armin is great at comedy. We mentioned Renee earlier, but I want to give Armin his props, because he nailed all the comedic timing in this as well, and he was outstanding. But no, I wanted to go back because, when I was watching it, I was thinking Gene Roddenberry would be proud of this episode. And the reason I was thinking that is because there were moments when I was feeling like this is a Western, this was a Western in
100%.
space.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt it in the music. I felt it on the close-ups, and they kind of had moments where they did close-ups where Nog's looking over at Quark and Rom's looking over, and it's like, and then they come out with their pistols, on the hip, and it looks like Quark's ready to, Billy the Kid the situation. It really felt like a Western to me, a space Western, and that's why I felt like Roddenberry would have really loved this episode had he been around to watch it.
Cirroc, can I just second that? Because I felt the same thing. And had I not known anything about the Magnificent Seven ahead of time, I'm sure I would have felt Western too. The music, the scoring, it was still the recognizable feeling and notes and instruments of Deep Space Nine, but it was delivered like a Western, like it felt like Western music. Even the way Iggy Pop, whether deliberately or not, was delivering his, it sounded like I was listening to John Wayne the way he was delivering. I don't know if he was told this or if that's just like, that's the way he's like, what are you talking about, Pilgrim? This is how I talk or whatever. I just wanted to second that. Very Western. And it felt like it had kind of the heart of what the show set out to accomplish initially.
Well, that's a good point because, you know, as soon as you brought this up, I do remember talking to Chip, and one of the things we discussed was the Sergio Leone, you know, tight, not just a close-up, but a tight close-ups, you know, those looming Clint Eastwood, like into the eyes almost. And he did that a lot with Iggy. And he did with some of the others too. He did with Gala, well, maybe not with Gala, but he did it a couple of times, you know, and that's very much, you know, that Western thing where it's the stare down, you know, it's all in the eyes. So yeah, I thought that was cool too.
Yeah, and you know, you two are coming with me. When Quark says that, and he gets up and says, "Yeah, I'm going, and you two are coming with me." And when they come around that corner, I felt like this is the old
noon stare down, right?
Yes.
You're just gonna have a good old gunfight right there. I felt like it was one of those, you know, take 10 steps and draw moments. You did have Sisko in for one scene. I felt like that was like a let me just check a contractual obligation and get him in here, because they did have that one scene where they kind of break into his office. I thought it was funny too.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I was surprised they got that all together.
It worked for me. I thought it worked, and Sisko's reaction worked. He didn't go over the top. He was just like, those kids up, you know, Quark and his brother up to something. I'm not even gonna ask. I love that. But I wanted to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned that you write for yourselves. You're like, no, forget the fans, forget everybody else. I'm writing for myself. And what that kind of, and you said you wish more people would do that. And what that kind of makes me think about is sometimes I see writing that feels dumbed down. Like you're talking down to people as if they don't get it. So you have to explain, I'm feeling really sad right now. And you know, and it's like, you don't have to write that, you know, let other stuff show that, but don't say those kinds of things. And I feel like a lot of writing in these days is kind of dumbed down to that effect, where they're trying to treat the audience like we're fourth graders or third graders. We don't understand what's going on. But you don't do that. You write for yourself, which means you're writing for somebody that you think is intelligent and has an understanding. So you're making it fun and interesting for yourself. And I think that's a huge difference for what the end product is. And I want to congratulate you and you know, for doing that, because it makes it so much better that you're trying to make yourself laugh and not us. Because when you make yourself laugh, we're laughing too. Mm-hmm. And I just want to thank you for that, Ira.
Thanks. But if you're right, you know, I mean, to me, it's pretty simple. But if you're writing for an audience, how are you going to surprise the audience? You know, the only way to surprise an audience is if you're giving them something that they truly are not suspecting. That you're taking characters in places they didn't think they could go, or storylines there where they didn't think it can go. But if you're trying to always please them, you're going to give them what they want, you know? So the only way for them to go, holy shit, I didn't see that coming, is because you're thinking about what you want in the moment, you know, in telling the story. You don't need to have your hand held in the same way, because you know what you're on the bus as opposed to being off the bus. Let's put it that way. So I think it's just an unhealthy, and look, and this was a big problem, a huge problem at, you know, season 1, season 2. I mean, it wasn't just the fans' problem. It was the whole setup. It's like the identity of the show. What is the identity of the show? And, you know, the first season, so much of it was like, well, it will work on TNG, so it should work here, which is like, oof. hoofa. That's a bad way to do it. But fans are not the most adventurous people in the galaxy. They the same hit, they want that same drug. That's what they like, and it's the shock of the old as opposed to the shock of the new. It's like, yes, that gets me off. I want to get off in the way I get off all the time. And it's like, why isn't Sisko, Picard? Why isn't Picard, Kirk? That whole thing. And it's a bad way to think creatively. If you're trying to think creatively, you don't want to box yourself in terms of what other people, you got to get the hell out of your own way when you're writing a lot of the times and free yourself up. And you're not going to free yourself up if you're thinking, well, what if the fans don't like this, or what if the fans don't like that, or what if the fans are expecting this, or what if the fans. So I thought a lot of the show, a lot of Deep Space Nine, in my mind, and only in my mind, was really a conversation or a struggle, maybe more than a conversation, with the fans, to take the fans into places where they weren't expecting and either go with us or sayonara, don't, because if you don't, that's good too. That's fine too, I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have profit participation in the show. If they said, you know what, this is, like with Enterprise, we're not going to go 7 years. We're going to go 4 years. It's like, okay, that's sad. I wouldn't have liked it, but, I didn't have to worry what it would do to my points or my this, that, or the other thing. So it was just make the best show possible. Make what you think is the best show possible. What the people in the room who are staring at that whiteboard with you, what we think is the best, thing to do. And, I saw Alan Craker, the director. Remember Alan?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't seen Alan in years, and Alan came with me. We both went to visit Hans at the motion picture home. And one of the things he talked about, and I to him in well over a decade, longer than that, I'm sure. But he said what he remembered was the writing staff, all of us walking on the lot, in the black leather coats, with everyone with the goatee, and it was like a gang. He said, you guys were all like literally like one mind, and we became this mind, where it's like anything goes, there's no, don't feel. And you fail that way a lot of times. I can point out to episodes where it screwed us up, but good. But I take the loss. Take the loss when you're doing 26. Okay, that's an episode that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Okay, tough on me. Too bad. Okay, but it's also going to cause a lot of good things to happen that would never have happened otherwise. So. I do think though that as I look back and it gets further and further away in the distance, a lot of it had to do with the actors, a lot of it had to do with Rick Berman, a lot of it had to do, I think, mostly though with the fans. It was like, okay, strap yourself in or get off the bus. Get either go for the ride or don't go for the ride,
Yeah.
And that seemed like the best way to do it at the time.
Give the fans what they need, not what they want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ira, we have, when we interview people, different writers, and a lot of the writers, all of them, and directors, they always come back and circle back to the kind of impact that you had in their life and the opportunities that you've given them. And I don't know if you get to hear it, because I don't know what kind of communications they have, but I just want you to know that you've made a really big impact on a lot of people's lives and started a lot of writers on their journey in life. And I think that's just, that's very special. And, whether you hear it or not, people are very grateful for what you've done and the kind of position that you've played as running this show, including myself.
That's nice to hear, and I thank you for it. But to be totally honest, that's the easy stuff. That, to me, that's the easy stuff. I mean, that's the Bronx boy, not tomorrow, today's Thursday. So on Sunday, I'm going to Zoom with guys I've known since kindergarten, since kindergarten. You know how many years that is?
At least 30.
I have, yeah, so the dealing with the people part of it is what it means to be a human being, that just comes with being a human being. You got to be able to know how to deal with people, whoever they are, and wherever they fall in the spectrum of whatever, in terms of what the mass culture, society think, who cares? But that's easy, and it's nice to hear. But that's what I'm supposed to do as a human being. That's what we're all supposed to do as human beings.
But not everybody does it. A lot of people, and some of them, are very possessive about stuff, and they're not as generous in letting other people get shine. And you've given the opportunity for other people to shine. Guys like Michael Taylor, Ethan Koch, all of these people that we interview, and
Robert.
Robert Wolf, Mark Zachary. These are people that you've basically, put on, quote unquote, or help in their journey. And it reminds me of somebody like a Rod Serling and the kind of impact they had in the business and the many careers that then were spawned because of it. So I just wanted to make sure you got your flowers while you're still here to hear it, and you understand how much people love and appreciate what you've done and the kind of generosity and spirit that you've given the opportunity to people to shine.
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So
we love it.
So we have a couple minutes left before we go off to the free for all. Malissa, I believe you may have had something to say a minute ago. Did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, I think it was covered though, but I do have another question. It's probably the most important question of the show. And that is, what is a squill?
Here's something. You want to hear something funny about? So it happened during this pandemic. So it's in the past year and a half. For some reason, I was at the Antius Theater with Armin and Kitty. And one of the actors at the Antius Theater is this guy named Phil Proctor. And Phil Proctor was a member of the fantastic comedy group, the Firesign Theater, back in the 60s, where everyone used to get stoned and listen to the Firesign Theater albums. Very, very, very funny, very odd stuff. And so here it is, 2021, or maybe it was 2020. And Armin comes up to me and says, Philip Proctor wants to know groat cakes. Groat cakes. That's something that was said on a Fireside Theater album in 1969 or 1968.
Wow.
And I said, yep, groat cakes. That's one of those things that stuck in my mind. I always wanted to use the term groat cakes. And Cirroc Will and Hippocat is from the W.C. Fields movie It's a Gift, which just came out on Blu-ray, if you want, one of the great comedy films of all time. And I from the time I was a little kid, I thought the term syrup of squill, which is some kind of medication, I think it's for an upset stomach or something. It was a real thing, I believe. And Hippocac too. And so I just thought it would be very funny to have people keep saying syrup of squill. So that's, again, it's just something that amused me. It had to be some kind of a name. And grow cakes. I just love the fact that 20 years after the show aired, I get the question from the guy who put the thought in my head, did grow cakes? Where did he come up with grow cakes? And it's like, wow. Where the hell do you think I came up with grow cakes from you?
There's one more of those too. And I'm so glad you guys reminded me of this. A couple months ago, we were all up in a tizzy trying to figure out once and for all, 30 years later, what the is yammock?
Yes.
Is it a root? Yammock sauce. How do you make yammock sauce?
That one I don't have an answer for.
The mystery will never end.
That one I don't think we have an answer for.
All right.
Yammock sauce.
Yammock.
Okay.
We'll go back to the drawing on that then.
We'll figure it out someday. Or Ira just make something up and pretend like it's just always been like that for the last 30 years. But sorry, go ahead.
I know we got to leave. I just want to throw in one real quick for the audience out there. The references that Ira just made and the kinds of references he always makes, the W.C. Fields reference, the books that he reads, the things that he experienced growing up, his incredible memory and remembering these details of all of these things that have impacted your life. That's what makes it rich. It's that layer of being able to draw from Magnificent Seven and draw from W.C. Fields and draw from here and draw from there and blend it all together and make your own original piece of artwork. That's the genius for those of you out there that are trying to reproduce this kind of genius. That's how the recipe works. You have to have all this experience in life. You have to have all this reference material and then be able to make your own original thing from it.
Right. Oh yeah, and also enjoy it. I mean, I don't care if anyone else knew what syrup of squill was, but every time I heard it in dailies, I remember cracking up, hearing it over and over again. Syrup of squill.
Oh, that's great.
It was a gift to yourself. It was an inside joke to just you.
Yeah,
right.
Love it.
Somebody know. Now they know. Now they know.
See you guys. It's a seminar in writing every time Ira is on. So everybody at home, play this 1,000 times over and keep learning. We do want to give a very special thanks to Carmen, aka Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Tom Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Tim Baum, Titus Mohler, John Mann, Darlena Marie, Rex A. Wood, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Joe Balsarotti, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Dr. especially Susan V. Gruner. Thank you all very much. Huge round of applause and thank you to Ira Stephen Behr, who's as close to a god or a titan as you can get on this planet. And stick around. We'll be right back on the 7th rule with the free-for-all. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule with Cirroc Lofton. And of course, Malissa Longo, Nog episode. What do you know? Mr. Ira Stephen Behr has decided to stay with us because he is the most glorious man or God ever created. Thank you so much for joining us again. This is the free for all. We've got Eve England out in Wales, Homer Freezy out in New Yeezy. We've got Grandpa One in space, TJ Jackson-Bey in Missouri, Goldie Scott in South Carolina. We've got Dr. Susan V. Gruner just floating around next to Deep Space Nine, and Tierney C. Dieckmann in
Virginia.
We'll remember that eventually. All right.
Mohamed.
And
that's right.
Dr. Mohamed Noor in North Carolina, neighbors with Goldie Scott. Thank you. All right, let's have some more fun. Homer's thinking, is he going to start with me like he always does? You guys have any?
Homer's just going to talk about sports.
He's already.
Oh, well, then let's start with Homer then. All right. Homer, do you have any thoughts or observations about the episode or for Ira?
I was going to do this. Ask a question about the ductwork and how they were crawling through there so much, but I know that Rom was there when Quark found him, and I can only assume that once they were inside, it was the quickest way and most fun for us to see to get to Nog to try to recruit him.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I love that moment where they go into Sisko's office accidentally. And Sisko was kind of like,
the look.
You know, he didn't get upset, but he's like, oh, those guys. Yeah, I like that a lot.
You know, that's the second time that we've seen somebody just pop out in somebody's room like that. That's how Nog stole back Dr. Bashir's teddy bear. So, like, where's the security around this place if you can just pop out of a time in anybody's room?
Odo.
What you doing, Odo?
Not doing your job.
He's distracted
can
by
you
Kira.
Imagine how that would have gone season 1 or 2 if Quark and Rom crawled out of an air duct into his office. He would have been pissed. It would have been a whole thing. But by season 6, it's like, oh yeah, you too.
Ferengi's as usual.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to ask. I don't want to know.
I'm Sisko. I don't have time for this.
Yeah. Well, Eve England out in Wales with the coolest baking skills of all time. Oh, actually, can you show everybody very quickly, once again, your creation?
Oh, here we go. Okay, try not to drop it.
Let's
eat it.
Yes. Look at that.
That's so awesome.
So cool.
What's
incredible?
You need to be hitting Martha Stewart up for a contract. She needs to sign you.
Nah, make her start her own. She's got nothing.
Yeah.
Martha Stewart's got nothing on her.
Exactly.
It was good fun to make that, and it's just been so amazing. Like, everyone's just loved it on Twitter and everything. So there's been some hilarious comments about, obviously, once it gets eaten, it's going to be cloaked, and lots of shit. Everyone's just come up with some really hilarious things. So it's been fun reading all the comments as well. Yeah, so that was fun. I know, I just love this episode. It's just so much fun. It's so great to see all the Ferengi together, because I don't think we sort of have many episodes where they're all together. Because we've got Ishka, because Nog isn't always around. We're in some of the other. They usually sort of split them up, don't they? So it's just so great to have them, and then have some of these extra characters, Brunt and Galen, all of those guys who just the chemistry and the way that they play off each other in this is just fantastic. And I know we've heard in the past from Armin about how they practice together, and I'm not sure whether they did that in this episode, but you could really just get the sense that they just clicked in terms of the dialogue, the actions that they were doing, and it's comedy genius. I just love this episode.
Yeah, Ira, do you know actually if Armin was able to get the information of, say, like the newer actors in order to even invite them to rehearse with him, or was that just something they're like, well, we've got somebody that's here this week that we don't know, so we're just gonna have to rehearse?
Well, the only new actor, right, was Hamilton Camp, and he was such a pro. I'm sure Armin, I don't know if they knew each other, how close, but I mean, Hamilton Camp was very well known actor, singer, comedian, everything. So no, I don't know whether they got together or not, but you can just tell. I mean, that was like the old from Dover and Excelsius. I mean, they were like, they.
We lost you for a second there, Ira. What were you saying?
Oh yeah, well, weather. No, I just
It's very rainy here in LA, guys.
From Dover, they all knew what they were doing. They were the real deal, and they all fit together so well. But I don't know whether or not if they did, I'm sure they had a lot of laughs. I'll tell you that. That must have been a fun rehearsal day for sure.
Fun.
Yeah. Dr. Mohamed Noor with one of the coolest sweaters of all time. Do you have any fun thoughts on this episode?
I have a fun thought and I have a question. So my fun thought was, well, I love this episode in general. This was actually one of the two I showed my son to get him hooked on Deep Space Nine. One was Sacrifice of Angels, and then was this episode. After he saw those two, he's like, I'm in. So that was the fun thought on it.
There's a lot of spoilers in Sacrifice, though.
Yeah, well, there was, but there was so much action. He was like, "Whoa, this is great!" I think they set the expectations a little high on the action part, but that's okay. I had a question. So there was a scene there where near the beginning where Quark got a message from the Grand Nagus. Was there a reason that we didn't actually see Wallace Shawn or the interaction with the Grand Nagus? I wasn't sure if there was a cost issue for bringing in another person, because that was the one Ferengi, coming back to the comments from earlier about all the Ferengi being together. That was the one Ferengi who wasn't in here but was referenced, so a non-appearance mentions. So
R1, yeah.
Originally, it was supposed to be a rescue of the Grand Nagus.
Oh,
that was how we broke it. That's what we wanted to do, but Wally wasn't available that week. And for whatever reason, we couldn't shift it. And so it became Moogie. But yeah, otherwise, as we had said earlier, it makes sense to get Lek and Gala and Brunt together to rescue the Nagus in a way more than Moogie. But it works anyway. But yeah, Wally was supposed to be in it.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Homer points out that Zek was not our only non-appearance mention, but Worf was also mentioned. I'd missed that one.
Yeah, when they're bringing Nog aboard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Tim Baum, aka Grandpa One. Looks like you're wearing a Chicago Bears jersey. Is that right?
Yes, Brian Piccolo. If anybody's watched Brian's song, that's
yes, of course.
I know Annie's song. It's a good one.
No.
You just got the hand. Got the hand.
By John Denver. It's a great song. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
It's a good song. What made this episode for me was Iggy Pop. I mean, he's literally the inventor of punk rock. I still remember way back when. And then I'm like, I recognize that voice. Who the hell is that? Of course, he's in all the makeup. It's Iggy Pop. And I'm like, and I was thinking, he's still alive.
He's still alive.
Yeah.
Still now. Yeah.
Wow.
Still.
No. He had some antics that's why I wonder why he's still alive. But no. The one thing, and I think I know, maybe Sue Gruner's behind this.
Of course she is.
I think last week or so, I looked up the IMDb score and it was very low. And then I looked at it today and it was a lot higher. I'm like, okay.
You were looking at Meridian.
Who knew that we were going to do this episode?
If
it didn't get a high rating, I'm going to be really pissed off.
Oh,
this is a 10.
It went up 3. It went up 3 points in a week. So I'm not sure who's behind that.
Wait, three full points or tenths of a point?
3 full points.
No.
Wow.
Is that even possible?
It's like the profits were involved. I don't know.
Tim Baum, he's a soccer fan. So
I'm going to go in and give it a 10 right now.
So, yeah, that's like the metric system or something.
No. No, honestly, I thought it was a great episode. It was probably a good break for the other actors because it was all Ferengis. And so everybody else got to take the week off. You know, I feel sorry for Armin and Max and everybody that had to be in the makeup the whole week. versus a few scenes. But no, I thought it was a very good episode. But
Yeah.
so that's all I got. So oh, and Eve, thank you for the Christmas card. I got it last week. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
See, Tim just brings the cheer for everything. This is great.
The silent laugh track.
There he goes. There he goes.
He has to mute himself to laugh.
Right.
That's not the most wholesome thing.
On Tim's birthday, we're all going to mute ourselves and go.
Good screaming.
TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. How are you? Good to see you back. Any thoughts on this awesome episode?
First of all, it's good to see Ira again. Thank you for sticking around with us. This episode is always a good, fun one to watch. And just poor Keevan that's just getting dragged around and then he gets shot. It gave me kind of a flashback to Spock's brain, the way they reanimated his body, though. I know everybody loves a good callback to Spock's brain. So, of course, they see Dr. Mohammed's cheering. And, the funny moment for me was when Grunt said, okay, I'll just get back in my ship and leave.
Yeah.
Because he knew what they needed. Although nobody wanted him there, poor guy. Nobody loves Grunt, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, Brett loves himself enough that he's got
nobody else needs to love him.
Nice even compensation.
Yeah. TJ, you also mentioned Keevan, who was awesome in this. And I think this was only the second and final time we get to see him. But Ira, you were saying a lot of great things about him and about the actor and wishing you could possibly bring him back. Can you tell us a bit about what you liked about the performance or what he brought to Avorta?
Well, it got, to the point where the hive mind of the writers thought that there was only one possible Vorta, which was Jeff, and that's how I think about it all the time. I mean, when I think of the Vorta, I only think about Combs, and the fact is that Chris Shea in both Rocks and Shoals and in this was actually, really good and brought his own, talk about, could you see having to negotiate with that dude? That would have been a pain in the ass. I mean, he had that kind of superiority that I thought worked really well, and that kind of ennui that, if you told me that, he's been cloned too. So somewhere Keevan is back, right? I mean, and he seemed like who's been through more than one life. Anyway, I just thought he was looking back, having not seen the episode in 20 odd years, 20 or more. I just thought that he did a really, really nice job. And I'm sure when Jeff was playing those scenes with him, he was thinking, oh, I'm so glad they're killing him.
But they can bring him back.
Competition. They don't need the competition.
He's a clone.
Well, I mean, he knows best that, he got killed in his first episode, so he knows best that that doesn't mean anything here.
That's not a guarantee.
I don't want to have to wear this red makeup. I like it when they see my face more. But he was good. It was a surprise episode for me.
I thought it was very good, and I thought he also embodied the essence of what the Vorta are, kind of that arrogance, that that wit, the intelligence, all of that stuff. He had that clever Vorta personality. I thought he was awesome.
Apparently, all the Vorta hate the Ferengi also.
Yeah.
I know.
You hate it.
You hate me.
That's your once.
I feel like all of the actors that you guys got for the Vorta were so freaking good. They all brought what is inherent within the Vorta, but then gave their own flavor to it. them and the Ferengi and the Cardassians, they're just amazing. Dr. Sue V. Gruner, all the way out in North Florida. Any thoughts on this fun episode?
Yes, but I'd hog up all the time. First, thanks, Ira, for being here, and thank you for staying purple. And I love everything about this episode. I'm still laughing. Moogie is captive. She's a hostage of the Dominion, and she's complaining that they don't have an investment portfolio. I just
yes, so good,
so good.
Parents,
her
sweetheart.
is brilliant. I loved it. I guess I'll just leave it there. Oh, the clothes. I would kill. Well, I wouldn't really kill, but I would love to have those Ferengi uniforms. Fabulous sewing, fabulous colors, fabulous combination. They spend big bucks on those fabrics for those darn Ferengis. That's not cheap stuff. And all the little accessories and everything. I'm the fashionista in the group, and I appreciate the stuff like that. It's just so good.
You do have a lot of cool wardrobe goodies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Screen worn ones, in fact.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice this. You're matching Ira, actually. Is that why you said something? That's why you mentioned his beard? You got some streaks in your hair.
Oh, can you see them? Because
yeah, just
I just had it redone a couple of maybe a week ago, but I've had purple for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And purple's my favorite color.
Looks awesome. All right. Tierney with an awesome Christmas tree in the background, and Q. It looks like you got Q back there, and Worf.
I got my Q and Worf.
And she's rocking the Moogie jewelry too.
Yes. Speaking of fashion and Ferengi fashion and screen worn, actually, I'm not 100% positive it didn't come with the COA, but to go with my Moogie fashions, I do have one of my Klingon artifacts that supposedly was. It's very heavy and I can't bend it to actually fit my wrist, so I dare not wear this out of the house. But I did my Moogie look today. I have my chains off my earrings. I even put my hair up. I tried to make ears. I did try. I put way too much effort in for something that's only seen from, forehead down a little bit. Don't have any, beautiful brocade fabrics and piping and big gold buckles, and God, the Ferengi costuming is amazing. But anyway, all of that notwithstanding, it is amazing. Ira, thank you for staying and speaking with us lowly humans. This is a phenomenally funny episode, way funnier this recent watch through than the last 1,000 times, who knows. And sometimes you become a little desensitized to things that you've seen over and over again, but Iggy Pop's, dry, I believe it was referred to as Midwestern humor, and one of the articles I had read at some point, it never ceases to crack me up. It's very relatable. But I did have a couple of questions, and I don't know if I'm just reading too much into it, because that's what all of us are very good at with Star Trek.
That's what we do.
Exactly. we are niche upon niche upon niche. I don't know if you would know specifically within this level of the writing, but I noticed something that might be a callback, and possibly one that has a callback later in the series. But the line from Nog when Keevan is just he's dead. He's got the things on his forehead, and he says, according to these readings, this man is dead. And the thing that popped into mind this time was when we first encountered Keevan, because I have like two and a half pages of notes here. As I'm going through it, is thinking back to when we first meet Keevan, and he's still just as self-centered and doesn't care about his Jem'Hadar, hasn't committed suicide as he's supposed to. Keevan doesn't even care. He's just Keevan. And Bashir fixes him up, and he wakes up and says, I am alive. And he says, hold on, I'm the doctor. According to these readings, you are alive. And Nog's, according to these readings, this man is dead. Is there any correlation there that's discernible? It's really specific, I know.
It's hard to remember. By the way, this is Nog. This is the cat.
There he is. Hang on, we're gonna spotlight him. Hang on.
Whoa.
There he is.
Nog.
The cutest guy.
Yeah.
Noggy.
So sweet.
Nog.
That makes me feel bad that my Keiko is upstairs.
There you go. At the time, I would think we definitely did it. I can't remember now, but since it hadn't been that long ago, I'm sure that it was a callback that we meant to do.
So cute.
The line reading is a little off from the reading from the previous episode, so it's hard to detect. It's one of those things, unless you've seen it 20 times and you're piecing it together, literally taking down notes.
Which
then
we do
the other one, the other one was I guess call forward, and I just realized it where I'd heard it later in the series, I believe, is when who is the female Romulan senator that comes on? I think they had to replace the actress. Is it Freenac?
Oh yeah, we had to replace.
Freenac was the male. I think that was the one that said it's a fake.
Oh,
it's a fake. That was
right.
That was Stephen McHattie.
I don't know. I think that was Freenac.
Yeah.
Anyway, but when she meets Kira, and there's kind of an overlap in the similarities of how it's phrased, where at one point Iggy Pop says, your people have a reputation for cunning and, relationship with the Dominion. And then she goes on later and says to Kira, say a very similar thing. And it's laid out, the sentence structure, the back and forth is almost identical, just slightly different wording. And I only recall that because the last time I did a watch through, which was pretty recent before all of this started, and now I'm going over it again, I remember going, that was just as Iggy Pop said all of this, and my husband sitting on the couch like, what the hell is going on? Like, so I'm just freaking out, screaming at the TV, because thinking this had to be either purposeful, that they meant to do this just because they thought it would be a thing that would, be an in-joke of all different races, factions, good, bad, whatever we consider, say the same things, some sort of subtlety, or it was just somebody was lazy and thought it sounded good and just included it and thought that nobody would notice.
Either of those things, both of those things, or none of those things. It's that's lost to the foggy mists of time. So
yeah,
at this point,
I think we're all just looking at your kitty anyway right now at this point.
So cute.
He's so happy.
Cute,
He's so happy.
So cute.
Speaking of so cute, Goldu Scott.
I was hoping you would lead into me that way, Ryan.
Do you have any fun thoughts on this awesome episode?
I don't know if you guys brought this up during your full review or not, but one of my favorite jokes or gags in lines ever is in this episode, and that's in the very beginning when Quark finally finds Rom, and he's, I've been looking all over for you, and Rom goes, oh good, you go hide and I'll come find you.
Yes.
That's one of the best lines ever. And the way that Max delivered that, he looked like he was so proud of himself for saying it too.
I love that.
And then there's also the moment when they finally see Ishka, and they're finally at the crossroads, and they're talking to each other, and like, well, what if she's a changeling? And they do the whole cut knife thing. and was that the first time that Nog and Ishka were on screen together in that scene? I don't remember them ever being, because they say at one point he's visiting his grandmother. Yes, and for that moment to be like the first time seeing together, and she just goes, "I don't know. Why don't you let me see the knife?" And he just steps back, and that was
give me
so
the knife.
perfect as well.
The fact that she beats him over the head is such a familial move.
That's exactly what my grandmother would have done. The same thing.
Mine too.
Just like that. Yeah.
With the utmost love, but yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I would have just said yes and backed away too. But yeah, I also loved all the understated, of course, Iggy once again. And just that billowing voice coming through. I don't know if he probably even needed to be mic'd or anything. He's just, we're waiting, Ferengi. Or yeah, every moment, every last delivery from him as well. Yeah, I love the entire.
I was cloned.
It doesn't. There's a lot of episodes where when you're watching it, we do watch throughs a billion times over and over again. And there's ones where you stop and you watch it completely, and you're completely focused on, other City on the Edge of Forever, stuff like Sacrifice to Angels, Far Beyond the Stars, and they're all really heavy ones. But this one, it's like it's up, it's happy, it's hilarious. The characters are all 100% spot on. I wish I could see the ongoing adventures of Lank, because Lank was like the new guy, and he's horrifying, and he's hilarious, and he's horrifying, and he's slinging knives around, and he's the only one that's like, sure, if we die, who cares? This is great. This is fun. I could watch all these other episodes over and over again, and this one being so happy is one of the ones that it's really fun. This definitely, and of course, Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite. That every time I stop everything I'm doing, you put the phone down, you shut everything else off, you tell everybody to quiet down. It's time for these two. So yeah, it's a special one there for me for that one.
Yeah, Lank is the original Kawat Malat, right? Attaching himself to the hopeless cause. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't care about the Latinum. I don't care.
So we've got just a few minutes left. Malissa, Ira, Cirroc, if you've got any final thoughts to throw out. There's so much we didn't cover because there's so much to cover in this episode. If there are any last thoughts you want to throw
out? I just wanted to say, this often happens, Ira, when we review episodes, is we write down lines. And I know Ryan does the same thing. We all do. We'll write down lines. And I can't wait to get to the review so I can repeat those lines. and I found myself doing that again in this episode. So it's kind of weird me repeating the lines back to you, the person who wrote the lines, but that's how much it impacted me. And the moments are amazing. One of them was, for example, at the end when they finally revealed that it was 50 bars of Latinum as opposed to the 20 that they were splitting up. And Quark is like, okay, fine, 50 bars it is. And then he adds a little caveat. Yeah. Of course, minus my
small finder's fee.
Yeah, my usual finder's fee, minus that.
Modest.
I love that throw in. And then the other thing I wanted to just say while you were here is that you always make these references, and I love them, these married jokes. O'Brien sometimes have married jokes, and you use these married jokes, like people who are married have jokes about being married, and you used one in this episode as well where Rom says, "I'm a married man, I have responsibilities, and my responsibilities don't want me to die."
Okay.
I love the way you play with that. Those married jokes and then those kinds of clever ways of talking about being committed to somebody. I love the way you do it.
Thank you. Well, it's all about the human, whether you're in space and whether you're wearing prosthetics or not. It's the only condition we can really write about. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another great line. Just want to say real quick, another great line was when Nog says, "You mean like Commander Worf?" He says, exactly like Commander Worf.
It's one of those moments where it's like we were talking about not hitting people over the head with being so obvious, but that line demonstrated his admiration for Commander Worf. He didn't
Ambition.
have to say, I don't admire Commander Worf or don't want to be like Commander Worf. He said it in that line. You mean like Commander Worf? You know,
Yeah.
it was a beautiful moment and beautifully written. And yeah.
And you couldn't ambush a Bolian if he was blindfolded and tied to a tree.
Yes.
Lectus shoots Moogie.
He said it was obvious we weren't going to rescue her, so I put her out of her misery.
Right.
Bull, you just wanted to shoot something.
Yeah.
Tim, were you saying something?
Me? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I was going to say, Ira, one of the things I've noticed watching this is that, you know, I'm older, but you killed two of my idols while you were showrunner. Will Robinson and Iggy Pop. So that's got to be a record. Or
Still bitter.
Bill still talks about the fact that I killed him. You know, he's never quite forgiven me.
It's a great episode too. All right.
I have a last question.
Yeah, please.
Who is in the morning going to have some syrup or squill with their pancakes and waffles?
No. I don't eat any.
With their, you mean with their groat cakes?
No.
Yeah.
You guys, we asked Ira what yammock is.
Good question.
And you'll have to watch the review to find out.
We're teasing them for the thing that happened 30 seconds before they came on.
I always thought it was like a really salty teriyaki.
No.
Yeah.
Pictured it
fish.
like a root.
No.
Well,
I guess I'm thinking yammock sauce.
I'd be thinking yucca, Ryan.
Yeah, a rutabaga.
Last thing before we go, guys. Last thing. I just during that last scene when he was being controlled by Nog with these neural sensors or whatnot. I don't know if any of you thought of Michael Jackson Thriller, but I had the Thriller. It was a Thriller moment there for me. Because I think Michael Jackson does that little, kind of broken leg walk.
So good.
So, I love it. And that was probably the most ridiculous part of the episode, but it worked, and it still worked. It actually still worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just reminded me of that time when Bashir, was playing with Bashir when it was his hologram.
Yep.
Into the wall.
Bouncing into the wall.
Yeah, I thought.
Reminded me of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, actually, Ira, if you guys had deliberately done that, because it gave that same imagery. And by the way, thank you for not explaining how Nog got that whole thing to work with moving
just like engineering.
There were 7 minutes. There were 7 minutes left in the episode, and you're like, it's just like engineering. Let's move along, shall we?
Right. It's about keeping things running.
That line was used again by Tig in Discovery when they find Tig Notaro's character. I'm an engineer. It's the same thing. It's a machine.
Right.
So they called back DS9 there.
Lower Decks also recall that whenever Rutherford was trying out different departments and he was trying to work in sickbay.
That's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess we did it, you guys. There's way more to talk about this one, but we're going to have to save it for later. Ira, thank you so much for this. This is such a pleasure and a delight, and you really teach us so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And thanks to Eve and Mohamed, Gull, Tierney, Homer, Tim, Sue, and TJ for joining in the fun as well. Everybody at home, check out Ira on Twitter. He's a great follow. He is super fun. And everybody ask him what yammock sauce is. No, but really, Ira, we really appreciate you taking the time. It's really cool of you. I know you're super busy, and we were very excited when you said yes. So, giant thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And everybody at home, be nice to each other. What the hell? Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Where did that come from?
Merry Christmas.
Is that
Thanks to everybody. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule.